George Floyd's death this past spring ignited a spark in the fight for equality across races and brought to the forefront the substantial work needing to be understood and done by all of us to fight racism. At times, work this large can feel overwhelming. Where do we begin? How do we look at, analyze, and at times shift our approaches on how we view and interact with each other? How can we tell if we're making a difference? These are all questions many of us were asking ourselves this summer. During one of our meetings with leadership team, I remember Danielle Johnson-Webb, our Director of Equity and Community Engagement, saying, "We don't have to have everything figured out before taking action. If we wait until we figure everything out, we will remain silent. That's not an option. We have to show our community that we're here and we're willing to do the work." Since that day, our community has sprung into action. Books are being read, discussions are being had, stories of trauma and stories of unity both are being shared. Everyday doings and approaches are being viewed with different lenses. We are far from where we need to be, but we are on the path and we're on it together. A lot has changed in the world and in our community since May. For the next episode of Keeping Chargers Connected, Glenn Kleiman, the chair of the Equity Committee and a member of the Board of Directors, along with Danielle Johnson-Webb, will be joining us. Glenn is joining us from more than 6 feet away. He resides in Northern California, and he'll open up our discussion with a reflection on who we are as a school and why this work is important. Then Danielle will join me from a few feet away rather than a few states, and she and I will dive into what has been happening within our community and where we are hoping to go in the coming year. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Glenn now.
Hello, members of the Carey Academy community. I'm Glenn Kleiman. I'm a professor of education at NC State, where he's also the executive director of the Friday Institute for Educational Innovation for many years. More importantly, my wife Elizabeth and I are the proud parents of 2 Carey Academy graduates. Our son Jeremy graduated in 2012, and our daughter Rachel graduated in 2014. And since 2017, I've been a member of the board of directors. I chair the Equity and Inclusion Subcommittee of the board, and I've been asked to provide a little background so that everybody can understand our role. First of all, since I know the board can be a mystery for some, our role as a board is to focus on policies and priorities for Carey Academy. We're involved in things like strategic planning, mission statement, approving each year's budget. We participate in the hiring of school leadership and provide a number of other functions, but all at a very high level. We're not directly involved in the day-to-day running of the school. That is very ably handled by the leadership team and all the faculty and staff. But our job is to keep an eye on the big picture, the long-term picture, and the priorities overall. Within that, the role of the Equity Inclusion Committee is to set policies and monitor progress to support the Carey Academy community in fully meeting the diversity, equity, and inclusion mission statement. That statement begins by saying Carey Academy fosters a learning community where the richness of diversity is recognized, respected, and embraced. We take that very, very seriously and are very committed to supporting the school in meeting that mission. We're very clear that we mean diversity in all its forms, not limited to the specific ones we list in the mission statement. For example, in this time period, diversity in political views and perspectives is a very critical one, in which we hope to foster respectful and productive dialogues within Carey Academy. We know there are many challenges. This is very difficult work. It's work that involves personal growth as well as organizational growth. It's work that involves bringing people together with very divergent views and perspectives. We're committed to doing that work with integrity. And as one of our board members always says, we're committed to walking the talk, not just talking, but acting on it. We believe we've made some good progress in recent years with all the affinity groups, the dialogues across differences work, the professional learning programs for faculty, staff, and administrators. The board members are also involved in professional learning around these issues. We also have had good progress involving members of the PTAA, the alumni, and all the other stakeholders. But we know there is a long way to go. This is not work that will ever be finished, but fortunately, Carey Academy has continuous improvement deeply embedded in its history and in its soul, and we will continue to work towards our very, very important goals. As a final note, I'm recording this message just a few days after the sad passing of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg and a few months after the passing of John Lewis, two heroic leaders for equity and justice throughout their lifetimes. We're inspired by their work. We know our students will be inspired by their work. I also, as a personal note, Justice Bader grew up in my neighborhood and went to the same high school that I did a number of years before I was there. Thinking about that makes me realize that we could well have within our student body a future Ruth Bader Ginsburg or John Lewis, and it is certainly our role to foster the development of these wonderful, talented future leaders.
Hi, Danielle.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today. So we just heard Glenn talk a little bit about who we are and why this work is so important for Carey Academy. I was wondering, as our Director of Equity and Community Engagement, can you talk a little bit about why this work is so important for schools in general, and why also schools should be striving to be anti-racist?
You know, I think we're in a pivotal time. I mean, we work with young people. We work with people's children. We work with young people from all walks of life, religions, races, political beliefs, socioeconomic status. And in order for us to interact well and to teach them and to make sure they're learning, we also have to do the work as adults. And so, you know, striving to be anti-racist is important for our community so that our students feel like they belong, so that they feel like they're included, so that they feel like they have a safe place here. This work is important, and as leaders and as educators, it's important for us to do this work to be able to interact well with our young students.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I agree with both of you that what we do now not only impacts who we are today, but also these students and how they're going to grow up and who they'll be and who they'll raise in their families. And so there's as Glenn just referenced, there's a piece here of future work as well. As he said, could have the next Ruth Bader Ginsburg or John Lewis within our own community. I want to pivot for a moment from the work itself and talk a little bit about the importance of your role. Can you share a little bit about your role as Director of Equity and Community Engagement? This role seems to be popping up at schools more frequently now.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit about the importance of this role, not only on the current community, but also on the alumni population from schools across the country?
Yeah. You know, I'm fortunate that I am not the first Director of Equity here at Carey Academy. This has been a position that we've had over 10 years. And really my work is to work with the leaders of the school, with the faculty and staff to ensure that, again, we are creating a safe place, a place that students can belong, that they feel included. It's important for us to have someone who always has their eye on that, and that would be me. So in terms of curriculum, in terms of how students navigate the hallways, in terms of parent interactions, I'm really here to give guidance to our faculty and staff and school leadership. And it is popping up. I would say probably 3 years ago, there weren't as many as there are now. And so I think that's a good thing. And really ensuring that directors of equity, that we're not here to manage the harm, but we're here to make equitable institutions. I really feel like that is the trajectory now of this position. And so I'm fortunate to have the equity piece, and then I have the community engagement. So I'm diving deep into the messy, hard work with our faculty and staff of equity, of diversity, of inclusion. But at the same time, I'm reaching out to the community. I have a service learning director that's amazing. We're doing entrepreneurship and experiential learning. And so I'm kind of trying to balance these two worlds, which is pretty fun.
Build the bridge across them, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Can you also talk a little bit about, I know you've interacted with a lot of alumni as well, and they've been very intrigued about your role and what you're doing for the school now, and shared their stories, some of their trauma stories, also some of their positive stories. Can you talk a little bit about the relationship between this role and the alumni community too?
Absolutely. You know, I think CA has done some great work, but just in the work I did with the alumni, we have work to do. And the alumni, they were brave, they were strong, they shared stories, they shared moments where they think we need to grow. And I was fortunate enough to be able to listen and to put some of that feedback into action. And for me, it's about our alumni being proud to have been CA students, right? For them to know that We may not have had it all figured out when they were here, but we are striving to do better for each generation that comes through here. And really, that's my message, that we have alums that are doing amazing things around the country, around the world, but some of them did have experiences that were not a 10 here at CA. And so how do we take that information? How do we apologize for those moments, but also move forward and continue to strive to be great? And I was just blown away by our alums. And I heard from alums of every race, socioeconomic background, alums that are on Broadway, alums that are lawyers. I feel fortunate that I was able to hold that space for them. And I hope that they know that we're taking what they said seriously, we are putting some things into action, and we are making a plan to move forward so that when we have this moment, if we have this moment in 10 years, I'm hopeful we will not, and that we will see some big change, but if we do, the feedback from our alums is different. And that's really what we're striving for.
Setting a great example for our students today, too, that we are still learning from ourselves from yesterday,
Yes.
and we are taking it seriously. And I think it validates their experiences as students, too, that
Absolutely.
those voices are worthwhile, and we want to hear what they have to say.
And I think just them knowing they have a place. You know, they can speak to their division heads, they can speak to me, their parents can reach out to me. And so I think just knowing that there's a place. When, you know, we're fortunate to be a school that it has a large, diverse population, but you could still at times be the only. So knowing that there are people around you that you can go to for help and to just talk to is great.
Absolutely. Thank you for providing that space,
Yeah,
all of
absolutely.
them. I want to continue to talk about your role a little bit. So I know some of the work you've done this summer and into the fall has been collaborating with your counterparts across the different independent schools in the state. And there's a lot of work being done. I think I heard you at one point say that there's a group of 7 of you that are coming together and talking. Can you talk a little about what you all are working on together and how the other schools are viewing this work too, and how it helps to collaborate with others?
You know, I was fortunate in my former life, as I say, to be an admissions director. And in the Triangle, there's a huge consortium of admissions directors. And when you can sit in a place with other people that do what you do, you get comfort in that. And we are building that for the directors of equity. I think now, actually, as of last week, there might be 8 of us. And we are trying to meet every other week through the summer. We met every week. And it's about coming together. What types of events can we do together? If you happen to be at a school that does not have a huge Asian population, can you come to our upper school affinity group? And so we're really trying to provide resources for each other, be sounding boards for each other. Schools like Durham Academy, who has had this position for 15 years, I'm meeting with Ravenscroft and Trinity of Durham and Chapel Hill. And so there's a wide range of schools, but we all know this is important. And you know, the fact that these positions are there, the Board of Trustees knows that these positions are important. And so it gives us great hope to be able to meet with each other weekly, to be able to get our students together. It's been refreshing, I would say. And to know that we are all, even though we're different, we have different philosophies, we have different mission statements, the mission of being anti-racist is the same. And so that feels great.
Brings you together as
Yes.
well. Interesting. Well, thank you for putting the time in to collaborate with all of these different schools. There's a community that comes from all of our independent schools, and I'm glad that this work stretches across that as well.
Yes.
For all of our families that are watching at home, I'm sure that they've, heard a lot about the work that's being done, the affinity groups that we have, the communications we're putting out, the work you're doing with alumni, the dialogues you're having, the Zoom conversations. But I'm sure there's also a feeling from the parents of what's happened though? Has anything been done? How do we measure success? Are we getting any better? Can you talk a little bit about the growth we've seen for Carey Academy in terms of equity?
Yeah. So, when you look at our students of color, that population has grown, right? And we are one of the most diverse schools in the Southeast outside of the Atlanta market, but we know that's not enough, right? And so it's about, one of the things for me is when I was speaking to alums, I remember an alum from many years ago saying, I navigated the halls for 4 years and never read a book by a person of color. That story can't be told now, right? So to me, that is growth. We are moving through that. We've looked at our English curriculum, right, and who are our students coming in contact with, and we've done that over the years. And so, really, with that curriculum piece, for me, in terms of the checks and balances, it is can every student see themselves? Are we there yet? No. There's still work to do, and we're doing that work. But that's really one of the ways to measure. And I think also getting feedback. I think the work that I did this summer with alums shows that we have a lot lot more work to do. And my hope is that as I continue to have these conversations, as we continue to pull our alums in that want to join me in this work, which is so amazing, we'll be able to see progress, and we'll be able to look back and see if students are having those same experiences. And so really just taking a deep dive, policies, hiring, curriculum. It's really important to me, and I know to Dr. Earhart, our head of school, that anybody that walks into a space in Cary Academy, that they feel welcomed. And so what work needs to go around that to make that happen? And so we're still building those checks and balances. This is a ever-changing, growing process, and I know that. But we have to hold ourselves accountable, and we have to do the hard work. And I think I have a great team of leaders here that are supportive and that know that we need to be doing this work and that it's serious.
Absolutely. And listening to everything you've just talked about, reflecting on the fact that you said this isn't even the first, you're not even the first one to hold this role within the school. It's obvious that the work has been being done for years, but also it's a journey, and we are only partially there, and we have a long way to go. And I think Glenn touched on that earlier too, that this is in our mission, this is in our core values and who we are. And so a huge appreciation to you, to Glenn, to everyone on the equity committee for starting to put this work in, but also to all of our community members, to you as parents, taking care of your kids and encouraging them to speak up, bringing your experiences to us, bringing them to people like
Absolutely.
Danielle. We know that we've got a long path ahead of us, and we're very grateful to be in a community that is collaborating and learning from our mistakes and learning from just what we need to be doing more of, less of, and how we need to change in the future. So Danielle, thank you for sitting down and talking with us today. The good and the bad is I'm sure we'll have more of these conversations, the good being that I think we'll continue to grow and we'll continue to strive, and hopefully we'll have more things to share with our community as we continue to make improvements. But we're grateful to have you on our team.
Thank you.
Glenn, thank you for joining us from California. And to all of you watching, thank you for spending time with us today. We look forward to bringing you even more episodes in the future for more topics that are happening across campus, but we appreciate you taking some time with us today. Thank you.